You thought the destruction of Toys R Us was a tragedy? You thought the death of Red Lobster was just bad management? You were wrong. Those were just the beginning. In our last investigation, we exposed how private equity firms like Bain Capital and Golden Gate looted major national icons. But the list didn't end there. It got worse. Way worse. While you were watching the big names fall, these same firms were quietly hunting the regional icons you grew up with. And they didn't just steal the inventory. In some cases, they raided employee pension funds. Thousands of workers got nothing. The executives? They walked away with millions. Let's get right to it. Number 10, RadioShack. If you grew up in the 80s or 90s, RadioShack wasn't just a store. It was the neighborhood emergency room for electronics. You remember the smell. Solder, ozone, cheap plastic. It was this glorious mess of wires, fuses, and batteries everywhere. You needed an obscure adapter at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday? You went to RadioShack. You remember the Battery of the Month Club card you kept in your wallet? That wall of tiny drawers in the back that held every resistor known to man. You remember bringing your science fair project there the night before it was due, panicking. And there'd be some guy named Earl with a beard who'd help you figure it out. That's where nerds became engineers. Here's the thing, and this is important. RadioShack had survived big mistakes before. In 1991, they bought Computer City, massive computer superstore chain. Too ambitious. It failed. By the mid-90s, they closed the whole thing down. But they recovered. They bounced back. They proved they could survive their own bad decisions. But 2015? That was different. A hedge fund called Standard General took control. They called it a rescue. Looked more like a suffocation. And honestly, the real damage had started years earlier. Financial engineering stripped out RadioShack's cash. By the time Standard General showed up, RadioShack was already gasping for air. Instead of investing in the maker movement, which RadioShack was perfectly positioned to lead, they pushed cell phones. They turned it into a Sprint kiosk. Killed what made RadioShack special to chase quick money. RadioShack filed for bankruptcy in 2015. Then again in 2017. Today, it's a zombie brand online. The store that saved your science fair project? It's a vape shop now. Number 9, Shopko. If you lived in a major city, you might not know this one. But if you lived in the Midwest, Shopko was your lifeline. For millions in rural towns, Shopko was Target, Walmart, and the pharmacy rolled into one. You bought your winter coat there, your glasses, patio furniture. Shopko served communities that big retailers completely ignored. Then came Sun Capital Partners, private equity firm. 2005, they bought Shopko for $1.1 billion. And then they pulled a move we talked about in part 1, sale-leaseback. Let me explain how this works. Shopko owned all its buildings. No rent, no landlords. Sun Capital sold those buildings to real estate investors, took that cash, hundreds of millions, and paid themselves back. Meanwhile, Shopko suddenly had to pay rents, massive rents, on buildings they used to own for free. For over a decade, Shopko just bled money to landlords. The cash that should have updated stores went to rent checks instead. 2019, Shopko filed for bankruptcy. All 360 stores closed for good. And this wasn't just a store closing. For small towns, this was a disaster. Some towns lost their only pharmacy. Elderly people had to drive 40 miles for heart medication. Sun Capital? They walked away clean. Rural America got another empty building. Number 8, Claire's. This one is a rite of passage. If you're a woman in America, there's probably a 90% chance you got your ears pierced at Claire's. You remember sitting in that chair in the middle of the mall, the click of the piercing gun, those racks of glittery headbands and friendship bracelets. Claire's was the allowance money capital of the world. 2007, private equity giant Apollo Global Management bought Claire's, $3.1 billion. But they didn't use their own money. They used what's called a leveraged buyout. That means they borrowed most of the money, then made Claire's pay back that debt. They loaded Claire's with $2.4 billion in loan. Think about that. A store selling $5 earrings suddenly owed billions. It was impossible. Every dollar a teenager spent on a mood ring went to Wall Street creditors, not to new products, not to better stores, just interest payments. By 2018, Claire's couldn't keep up anymore, filed for bankruptcy. Hundreds of stores closed. And here's the saddest part. Claire's was wildly profitable before the buyout. It didn't need saving, needed to be left alone. But Apollo saw a piggy bank and smashed it open. Number 7, Nine West. Nine West was the working woman's secret weapon. For decades, this was the brand for professional women. You could find heels that looked expensive, felt comfortable for an 8-hour shift, and didn't cost your whole paycheck. 2014, Sycamore Partners bought Nine West's parent company, $2.2 billion. But look, Sycamore didn't want to run a shoe company. They wanted to strip it for parts. Right after buying it, they sold off the best pieces. The luxury brands, Stuart Weitzman and Kurt Geiger, got over $1 billion for those. Did that money go back into Nine West? No. It paid down the debt Sycamore used to buy the company in the first place. Nine West got left behind, hollow, drowning in debt, stripped of its best assets. It's like buying a car, selling the engine, then blaming the car for not running. 2018, Nine West filed for bankruptcy. Every standalone store closed. A brand that defined office fashion for an entire generation got reduced to a discount rack label. Gone. Number 6, Friendly's. Friendly's was an East Coast institution. You went there for Fribble milkshakes, took the kids for Conehead Sundays after soccer games. Wholesome, sticky tables, family memories. 2007, Sun Capital Partners bought Friendly's, $337 million. Same firm that killed Shopko. They ran their standard playbook: cut costs, squeeze workers, make the food worse. But then they did something else, something really cruel. Friendly's had a pension fund. Cooks, waitresses, managers who'd worked there 20, 30 years. They believed their retirement was safe. But Sun Capital loaded Friendly's with so much debt that the company started failing fast. 2011, Friendly's filed for bankruptcy. And here's what Sun Capital did next. Stay with me because this is important. They used the bankruptcy to dump all those pension promises, offloaded them to the federal government. Thousands of workers got their retirements slashed. But here's the kicker. Sun Capital bought Friendly's back out of bankruptcy. Now it was debt-free, pension-free. They scrubbed away their obligations to workers and kept the company for themselves. It was so aggressive, it triggered federal investigations. The damage was already done. The people who built Friendly's left holding an empty bag. Look, if you're feeling angry right now, good. Hit subscribe, because part 3 is going to show you what they're doing to healthcare and housing. Trust me, it's worse. Number 5, David's Bridal. David's Bridal was where dreams became real. Largest bridal retailer in America, over 300 stores. You got married in the last 20 years? You probably went there. 2012, private equity firm Leonard Green & Partners bought it. $1.05 billion. They loaded it with debt. By 2018, David's Bridal owed $520 million. Filed for bankruptcy. Tried to survive. 2023, filed again. Now picture this. You're a bride, 2 weeks from your wedding. You hear on the news that the store holding your dress just went bankrupt. That's what happened to thousands of women in 2023. Jennifer from Pittsburgh had $2,800 in deposits. She showed up 2 weeks before her wedding. Doors were locked. She had to find a dress at the liquidation sale. Strangers fighting over gowns like it was Black Friday. Leonard Green and Partners? They collected their fees and moved on. Took a business built on dreams and turned it into a nightmare. Number 4, The Limited. If you walked into a mall in the 1990s, The Limited was the anchor, where you bought your first real business suit. High-quality American fashion. For women entering the workforce in the 80s and 90s, The Limited was basically a manual for success. 2007, it got sold to Sun Capital Partners. You know that name by now. They gutted Shopko, gutted Friendlies, now The Limited. They applied their cost-cutting formula. Quality dropped fast. The unique style became generic. 2017, The Limited filed for bankruptcy. All 250 stores closed. Every single one. A brand that defined professional women's fashion for 30 years vanished overnight. Number 3, Art Van Furniture. This one breaks the heart of the Midwest. Art Van wasn't just a furniture store, it was a Michigan icon. Art Van Elslander founded it in 1959, became the largest independent furniture retailer in the Midwest. Family business, employees stayed for decades. It was profitable, healthy. 2017, the family sold to private equity firm Thomas H. Lee Partners, $550 million. The new owners promised to expand, take Art Van national. Instead, they looted it. Less than a year later, they did a sale-leaseback, sold the real estate under the stores. Art Van went from zero rent to tens of millions in annual rent payments. The math didn't work, couldn't work. March 2020, Art Van filed for bankruptcy, just 3 years after the sale. All stores closed, nearly 3,800 employees fired. And here's the kicker, and this is cruel. This happened right at the start of the pandemic. They fired thousands into the worst job market in modern history and stripped their health insurance. The Art Van family watched 60 years of legacy destroyed in 36 months. Number 2, Guitar Center. Guitar Center was the Mecca. If you played music, you lived there. You went to drool over the 59 Les Paul on the top shelf. You went to play Stairway to Heaven badly until staff kicked you out. It was loud, chaotic, magical. 2007, Bain Capital bought Guitar Center, $2.1 billion. The debt bomb got planted. $1.6 billion in debt forced them to cut everything. They fired the knowledgeable staff, those old rockers who knew tube amps inside and out. Replaced them with minimum wage workers who couldn't tell a Fender from a Gibson. Guitar Center filed for bankruptcy in 2020. They're technically still open, but the soul is gone. Walk in today, the drum room has 2 kits instead of 20. The acoustic wall has 12 guitars instead of 50. And the kid behind the counter started 2 weeks ago at $12 an hour. Can't answer your questions. Bain Capital took the soundtrack of our lives and turned it into a spreadsheet. And that brings us to number 1. Now this one's different. The other 9 are already dead or dying. But number 1, it's happening right now, in your neighborhood, while you're watching this video. Number 1, Walgreens. Walk outside. Drive to your nearest Walgreens. Look at the shelves. See how many are empty. See how few employees are working. See the pharmacy lines stretching to the back. This isn't incompetence. This is extraction happening in real time. 6 months ago, August 2025, private equity firm Sycamore Partners bought Walgreens, $10 billion. Ended Walgreens' nearly 100-year run as a public company. And if you've been paying attention, you already know how this ends. Sycamore used borrowed money for most of the purchase. 70% of it was debt. Normal amount, 40%. They put Walgreens $13 billion in the hole. And who did they install as CEO? Mike Moats. Same guy who ran Staples for them. Under Moats, Sycamore closed 1/3 of Staples stores, laid off tens of thousands, loaded Staples with debt, and took out a $1 billion dividend. That's the guy now running Walgreens. The destruction already started. 1,200 stores closing. Holiday pay slashed right before Thanksgiving. Most of the communications team fired. Chicago headquarters closing in 2026. A company that's been in Chicago since 1901 is abandoning the city. Here's what makes this terrifying. Walgreens isn't selling sneakers or furniture. It's a pharmacy. Seniors get insulin there. Parents pick up antibiotics for sick kids. When Walgreens closes a store, it creates pharmacy deserts. Whole communities lose access to life-saving medication, especially low-income areas, rural areas. Elizabeth Warren already demanded answers. Real estate analysts are warning landlords. Bankruptcy, likely within 12 to 36 months. And Sycamore? They've got a track record. Remember 9 West from earlier? That was Sycamore. They stripped it and bankrupted it. They already split Walgreens into 5 separate companies. Why? So they can sell off the profitable pieces, leave the struggling pharmacy holding the debt bag. They're stripping the car for parts while it's still driving down the highway. And here's the scariest part. This just started. We're 6 months in. Toys R Us took 3 years to collapse. RadioShack took 8. Art Van took 3. Timeline changes. But the ending? Always the same. Bankruptcy. Liquidation. Empty buildings. Unemployed workers. Communities left with nothing. So when you walk into Walgreens next week, understand what you're seeing. This isn't a company struggling to adapt. This is a company being gutted for profit. And by the time most people realize it, it'll be too late. Look at this list. RadioShack, Shopko, Friendly's, Art Van, Guitar Center, Walgreens. See the pattern? These weren't just businesses. They were part of everyday life, where we celebrated, where we created, where we lived. Private equity firms treat 50-year legacies like short-term cash grabs. They buy them, load them with debt, sell the real estate, take the fees, walk away before the building collapses. It's wealth transfer, plain and simple. From employees and communities, straight to corner office partners. And looking at the files on my desk, I see where they're going next. Out of the mall, into your doctor's office, your vet clinic, the trailer park where your grandmother lives. They're even coming for your kitchen. That Pyrex measuring cup you've used for 20 years? That Instant Pot that changed how you cook? Both companies filed for bankruptcy under private equity ownership. The next wave isn't about retail anymore. It's about survival. Drop a comment right now. Tell me which story hit you hardest. The RadioShack where you learned electronics? The Shopko pharmacy that closed in your town? The Friendly's workers who lost pensions? The brides scrambling for dresses? Or are you watching Walgreens collapse in your neighborhood right now? I read every comment. I want to hear your story. And wait till you see part 3 of this series, where we expose what private equity is doing to healthcare, housing, and the products in your kitchen. Subscribe right now. These firms aren't slowing down. They're speeding up. The next targets are going to shock you. This is EconoNova. Stay sharp.